we love.
Back.
Welcome back and we're live. Alright, do we have people? Do we live? Do we exist?
I think we exist. And I see myself move, actually. That's funny.
Yeah, it's so fun. But yes, hello everyone, and welcome to a very belated stream of where we talk silly narrative stuff because apparently ideas have happened along the background and nobody knows about it publicly. I do apologize. I am a fae of 1,000 ideas, and I'm too slow to actually to announce things.
And I'm an eldritch psychologist who keeps forbidden knowledge to myself for a very good reason.
It's so funny hearing your voice literally so casually, literally a moment ago before we pressed this stuff, and now it's just proper British.
Of course I am. You know me. I can be relaxed in private, but the show must go on, and I must present my most fabulous design when in public.
Of course. Speaking of, I need to. Gotta redo my skills, but that's a future AM problem. I'm not gonna worry about that.
No, that's a future you problem. I would say maybe 2026 problem, 2027 at the latest.
Ha ha ha. Anyways, hello everyone, welcome. We are basically here to talk narrative. This is more or less a Q&A because again, we have had many ideas for things and not much in terms of. I just realized I need to grab my phone so I can grab chat. I'm also realizing gambling time's happening right now. Quickly do that as we finish our stuff, but yeah, basically it's just a case of you guys ask questions about characters that you know and love, don't care how old they are. Just to be a case of, hey, who wants updated lore? Who wants to hear the updated stuff and ideas of what's going on in KMS and all that lovely little jazz?
No spoilers, no spoilers, no spoilers, no spoilers.
This will be spoiler free. Do not worry. I'm not going to give away stuff.
Oh, no, that's not. Oh, no, I'm not talking about you. I'll talk about me. I don't want to spread madness.
Yeah, we don't want. Let's be honest, we both spread madness, but in different ways, my dear.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the fact that Indiana Jones dies.
Shame. Okay.
Was that included something? You'll never know. No.
The ending to Sleep, yeah. Anyways.
Who's indie in this case? No, anyway, let's move on. Yeah, so this is your stream, so
I do have chats on my thing. I'll just be working on silly things. I will try to work on silly things. Burnout has been the biggest of bitches.
Yeah.
But we'll just kind of talk, do a case of, hey, you guys ask the questions, we will answer to the best of our capabilities. It could literally be about any character in the narrative. It could be any character I have created, period. Because 9 times out of 10, actually no, honey, dear, love, baby, can you do something for me quickly?
Sure.
You, who has tutored math in the past, who has done tutoring in math, do you mind bringing up a calculator?
Oh, sure.
Put in the number of narrative characters divided by the number of characters I have in general and see what that percentage is.
Alright, well, so it should be... Alright, so let me just double check. If I am incorrect, 60%.
So, 6 times out of 10, the character is narrative related. Quite literally.
Yes.
What that number is, do not worry about it. You will never know what those numbers are.
Yeah, but I suppose it kind of comes down to, like, if anyone wants to ask questions, then just go ahead, just type that right in, and we'll ask, or we bring it up as soon as we see it, I suppose, yeah?
Yeah.
But until then, I suppose we'll just kind of go over each project that is planned in the narrative, kind of go for that, because here's the thing, you may know, and people who know us in person may think that we are very calm, nice people who are very low, but give us creative space, and we'll be far too ambitious for our own good. And it doesn't help that we have combined forces.
KMS alone, because we're not going to talk about the hell that is Psy Gaming.
No. This is not a Psy Gaming moment. If someone asks a Psy Gaming specific question, I suppose we could answer it, but I'm only going to answer it if it pops up.
No, that's completely fair.
Otherwise, I think that's a fair argument.
Yeah. But, point being... to give you guys an idea, the KMS has currently 7 projects planned for the narrative specifically. That's not including any other projects we want to do that's, by all accounts, outside the narrative. The narrative is the big boy, that is our baby, but we do have plans for other
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, like outside we got other the Necron. Yeah, we don't talk about that.
The Necronverse, Femtalem, whatever other silly projects we want to add otherwards. Technically Time's Blessing, but that's a whole nother can of worms we're not going to talk about. World building question. Is each story in the narrative its own separate thing that it can be read on its own, or is everything connected and one story is important to another? A bit of both. Like, each... I think the best way to put it is that, by all accounts, each story is its own separate thing, but there's a lot of elements that intertwine with one another. For example, the siblings and their dynamics are all something that, like, intertwines throughout the entire narrative through each story. And that is something that is kind of read and seen. But for example, you could, by all accounts, read, or, like, watch Catcher on its own and not having to worry too much about stuff in the past. You don't need to know much about many of the other stuff without... to know context. I think it's a case that even if there is stuff that kind of goes back to previous stories, they have their own specific context in Catcher that will be explained so that people who hasn't seen everything isn't completely lost. It's just more of a case of world building. You can kind of see all the links intertwine, but they're not going to be necessary, if that makes sense.
I'm trying to think of a good comparison. I was thinking first, say, Legend of Zelda series, because that's near to my heart, and everything will always come back to that. See you December. Anyway, but
Honey, this is Psy Gaming. Anyways.
No, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. Let me continue.
Okay, sorry.
But what I'm also going to say is that for those who have played the Zelda franchise, I was thinking, could that be a comparison? But it's not really an accurate comparison, I would argue, because yes, each game is separated. You don't have to play all of them to get the full understanding of all of them. But calling them connected by a larger narrative is a very inaccurate statement. Like, yes, there is an overarching lore in the Zelda franchise, for example. But that is very inaccurate to this, for example. Likewise, I would say that, and the thing is, it's difficult to say what is more accurate. Maybe more akin to, say, if using, maybe something akin to, say, more akin to, say, the Dark Souls trilogy. Or Hell of a Boss, maybe.
Yeah,
You said Hell of a
Helliverse.
Boss?
I would think Helliverse in the case, like, there's two very
Oh,
different stories, but they are
Aspen.
very, very distinct stories that take place in the same universe and kind of seeing different sides of this version of Hell. It's kind of
That
a little similar to that.
that is actually a good idea, actually. A good comparison, actually, because the Hell of a Boss and Has-Been, they are inevitably connected to some degree, but they're also inherently separate. They're only connected because it's the same universe, and probably now the latest announcement, they will be some more, connection. You look at them from what they were from the start, they were just two separate projects in the same universe, as you said. And I think if you approach the narrative like that, I think that you'll be able to comprehend it a lot better, because the narrative universe is, well, let's be honest, all these 7 projects do have some connecting elements, but none of them are actually needed to be watched in order.
This might be a long shot to ask, but would you do short comics based on the narrative for little side stories or tidbits? The thing is, and this is something we actually joked about before we press it.
Go ahead, say this.
By all accounts, most of the narrative projects is actually pretty short, or like pretty small, and pretty easy to make. And then there's Catcher.
Exactly.
Like, I don't think you guys realize how, I guess, in all relatively speaking, small most of these projects are. Like, Pillars and Exiled are only, but if you want to go like, normal, normal show stuff, and I say in the biggest of quotes, 1 season. Akolos has not even 10 episodes, I believe.
Let's think about it. Like, I think it's 7 plus the 8 that will serve as the, let's call it climax for now, without giving a spoiler. And then an epilogue, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
correct?
So it's 9. So yeah, 9 episodes. And then we have, I think it was like roughly 20 episodes for Exiled. Maybe even less. Honestly, we gotta...
Fewer, honey.
Fewer. Point being.
Yes.
It's about...
Sorry for being a grammar Nazi there. But
yeah, and English is your second language. But anyway...
yeah. It isn't that embarrassing.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway.
I'm from America. We are literally the butt of everyone's joke. But
I didn't even need to add to that. Anyway.
No, but I'm
yeah, but and for the record, if anyone is from America here, I love you all. Love you all. Problems with the countries notwithstanding. This is not a talk about that.
Anyways, please, let's not. But I was curious because in one short you brought up there was a war between all narratives, or might I be remembering wrong? There's a war that does affect all narratives, but again, that's more of a case of just the involvement of the siblings than anything else.
Well, so I guess the question is essentially that how between all narratives, like essentially when the question is war between all these that involves all these 7 stories. So what is it exactly? What do you think the question is? Is that? I'm a bit unsure. Is this question referred to inside the narrative or outside the narrative? That's what I'm kind of asking.
I think it's inside the narrative. I think it's just said like the narratives as in the stories, like the projects.
Oh, fair enough. For the record, just to be clear, we call this the story. This story, if you are familiar, we call it, the name of this saga and collective universe is the Relatus narrative, but we shorten it as the narrative. So you can imagine that can cause some confusion when writing things.
I mean, if anything, it wasn't that we shortened it to the narrative. It got extended to the Relatus narrative because of this confusion.
No, that is actually, that is true. Actually, that is true. That's how it became.
Because of the case of like, the narrative is such a broad statement. It's like we need to talk about this, this specific universe, and it had to be called the Relatus narrative for it.
Exactly. But to also kind of go into what Honeyed Inc. is asking here, the war between all the narratives. Like, how much can we say about this actually without going into spoilers, really, you know?
It's not a war between it's not a war between all the stories. It's more of a case of a war that includes all of them. It's more of a case that these stories are kind of just almost, I wouldn't say byproducts, but like consequences of the war.
Yeah. Yeah, if I may kind of like spout a bit myself, if I may.
Go ahead.
Essentially, remember how we said that each story is separate, but that there is an overarching thread? This particular war is that overarching threat.
Mm-hmm.
Is that overarching threat, the overarching thread, the overarching element that kind of unites them. Let's be honest, if this war is not present, all of them have no connection to each other. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you want to try to understand this war, you will need to watch all of it. But if you want to say, screw the siblings, I just want to watch the silly little blorbos inside that are just unfortunately tied to this, go ahead. They're not going to be that much connected. They're not really that much connected. I think the only exception would be Evercore, but that's just because time.
Fair. Like, but I think that, yeah, but I suppose that is there any other question for now? Boy, I don't.
If I know you as well as I think I do, and nothing gets small, but starts small, much gets bigger eventually. What do you think the narrative is?
That is what the narrative is.
Like,
let's be honest.
Literally, for it to be possible, we literally had to break it down into smaller chunks, and that's why we've been doing it as it is. And honestly, we are forcing ourselves to try and make both Pillars of Order and Exiled a bit smaller and easier to chew on, because the other stuff gets bigger.
Yes. So next week, and Augment 5 Weave IRC, isn't that why in the narrative stream Anne had to make a timeline?
Yeah, no, I made a timeline, which is the case that that the first act has 2 stories, the second act has technically three, although 2 of them are very much intertwined to the point that I kind of count them as 2. And then there's 2, and then those 2 in Act 3. The two in Act 1 are the Pillars of Order and Exiled in that order. The second act is, what did I say what it was? I know it was another Arcolas related stuff, and then there was Evercord. And then Act 3 was Project Rebirth, and then finally Catcher. There's a reason why we joke that there's this, like, the projects are easy to make. And then there's Catcher.
Yeah. Wait a minute, what is the 7th then? Because you counted 6 there.
Evercord is basically 2 projects in one, but they're like 2 tight, like, small stories that kind of intertwine.
Oh, fair enough. That's right. Sorry, I was like, wait a minute, you said 6. Am I missing a 7th here?
No,
I forgot.
Evercord is a 2-in-1 deal.
No. 2 for 1. Anyway, But no, so I think that is kind of a good idea. Like, we have to, but until we get the next question, should we just begin explaining each of these projects in kind of a synopsis?
Might be good, actually.
All right. Also, do know that for the record, for the sake of future posterity, everything said here is how it's currently planned and developed. Things might change as we go on in the future, so take these summaries and the synopses with a grain of salt. Disclaimer out. Pinch of salt in the future. So, I suppose that. Do you want to summarize the colors, honey?
Yes, Pillars. Pillars of Order. TLDR, it's basically I guess we could call it a audio drama. at this point in time.
No, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
Because it's not like like audio drama slash animatic series that has to do with the titular pillars of order and kind of a case of how do I put this? How do I put this without spoiling too much? Because I am scared because of how small that is. I'm scared I could say too much by accident.
Well, I think okay. You want me to try?
Might be good.
Essentially, the Pillars of Orders is kind of an introduction to the well, titular Pillars of Orders. Essentially, it is, but more so around like it's every episode up until the climax of the epilogue introduces the seven pillars and their domains and introduces more so a problem that is as central in the narrative of it. A problem that surrounds a mysterious event that they are not really sure what to make of. So they are talking with each other, and through their discussions, they discuss the nature of what they are.
Actually, I was about to say a silly thing is like a TLDR, and I realized, oh shit, this is basically just most of the. This is honest to God just the best way to describe most of the stories in the narrative.
Which is?
TLDR, they try to solve a conspiracy.
Yeah, let's be honest. I agree, but that's a shitty summary because that's everything here.
No, that's what I mean, because I was about to say it's silly, like, just be silly, it's like TLDR, and as soon as I kind of open mouth to say it, I realized, wait, this is literally the narrative in a nutshell. It's just TLDR, they try to solve a conspiracy.
Yeah, it is. Queen of summaries, everybody. Anyway, the Queen of, let's get to the blunt of it. Anyway,
well, somebody has to make everyone understand your pompous, pretentious speaking.
TLDR, no shit. Anyway, no, but so then we have after that we got Exiled.
Another audio drama slash animatic series. This one generally longer. Has to do with four kingdoms that basically watch the world unravel. Because if you guessed it, conspiracies.
Indeed. Here's the thing. There are actually ASMR videos that Angie made even before I joined.
Please don't watch them. They are so old. They are so outdated, and they are so.
They are
bad.
old. They are outdated. But let's just say that this is kind of the. This is actually a pretty good way to say it. The reborn version of that project.
Because when Exiled was originally made, I don't think you guys realized this was like before any other project I did even saw any sort of light, aka no narrative, no time's blessing, all of that. The reason it took so long though was to finish it was because goddamn Aldor.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like the interesting thing is that back then, yeah, Samuel was part of the narrative, but he was excuse me. He was far different from how it was back then, correct?
Yeah, no, he is a much different character than he is.
Yeah. And I don't say that he's like, is that a bad thing or a good thing? No, it's just the natural development of these things.
Slowly hold Samuel close. This is my husband.
Yes, it is. But thank you, Grace. Your words are very kind, and And Coffee, yeah, we must protect Zoidicus. I wish we could say that, nothing bad happens to him, but I'll be lying. Anyway.
Ooh, fun question here. What is the process behind the naming convention of your characters in the worlds they live in? Ooh, this is fun.
Okay. Oh, all right. This is your domain. Go ahead. What is it?
For me, it's a case that I try to have a meaning behind all of my characters' names. Like, I usually try to look up names that have to do with, kind of look up, like, their real life meanings and their cultures. For example, this is the one I always bring up because it's so easy, but for example, Bruidaire and Ashling, their names literally mean dream. It literally...
God, this music the music on right now.
I know,
bloody
it's
ironic.
so funny, it's so perfect. But yeah, no, like, literally, Bru's name is a pun. It's literally, his name literally means dream catcher.
Yeah.
Ashling is gonna have the same thing when she, eventually marries Bru, because I ship those two really hard. They're so precious. Let me have the smug bastard and his more serious, but also still very goofy and lovable wife. But Ashling's last name, if I remember correctly, I think means like hope or hopeful. So basically, her name is Dream of Hope.
Then there are some other names that are just kind of fun, like Simon. I will not say anything else about that character, in case to avoid any form of spoiler.
Okay,
but essentially,
no, this one is kind of a case that if you've been around a bit, but yeah, no, Pride, whose name is Simon, he's based off my real life cat, who is a grumpy, prideful little bastard.
Yeah, which is why it is kind of an inside joke that the highest of sins is just is a wet whiny pussy.
Careful, honey, because I don't because YouTube is a dick. But yeah, no.
Sorry for offense.
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
Disclaimer: offensive language up ahead. Deal with it.
Listen, I could say this. The narrative in its entirely is basically a dark fantasy / horror. These are all either like dark fantasy or horror in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Why is it horror? Looks at the Halloween narrative that, honest to God, explained more than it had any right to.
Look at the Halloween project that was made last year, and yeah, here's is that canon? Not really, but it was also a non-canon one-shot that was meant to kind of give a horrific reflection of darkness. That's all I can say about that. But yeah. It was good. It was real good. I still love that. But actually, to kind of also go with the question. Actually, here's a good question. Actually, I'm always imagined that Samuel was named because of Samael, which is Am I correct in that or no? Like, I'm asking a few questions here. Since I'm not the creator, I am a co-creator, but you're the main one here. So,
would you believe me if I said that is actually false?
I would believe you. But what is the true reason behind the name Samuel then?
I've told this story before, but it still amuses me every time. Because it's like, Samuel is, there has to be such a great name behind it. Guys, Samuel was the placeholder name. He was meant to have a different name, but everyone just knew him as Samuel. Like, there's a reason why he was originally introduced with "You Can Call Me Samuel." He was meant to have a different name with that as the placeholder name. And unfortunately, that stuck so much that I couldn't get rid of it.
No, but also give another reason for it in a more universe, if I may, is because the nature of Samuel has also changed, and to call him drastically. And here's the thing: he has a real name, he has an actual name, but no one can speak it. even we, the creators, won't speak it.
Yeah. But yeah,
which
no. And the thing is, the same thing with Lucille. That was meant to be a placeholder name, and I think it's funny that the character has thrived and become something much different, and I love her so much. And ironically, the name Lucille has kind of been dying out. It's still kept, but I'm kind of sitting here wondering if I should keep it or if I should just say screw it and just use her just like keep her quote unquote new name.
Yeah, we should also be careful to not speak more about that, but that's dangerous.
Yeah,
dangerous.
but point being.
Here's the point being, go on.
But yeah, point being. Because the original idea with those two was that I was just being silly. And that because it was meant to be the case that both of them were linked to the devil, one of them had a name that was similar to Satan, and the other similar to Lucifer.
Yeah.
That was the whole funny aspect about it. But again, Samuel stuck so much, I could not get rid of it. I could try to rename him, and I think most people would actually come to my house and hunt me down and be like, no. You included, hon.
Thank you.
If anything, Kreuger, you're the one leading the charge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so most of the names that I try to give now have some sort of meaning behind them. Like, I think another fun one I could say that's more recent because of the name change, Umlilo. Or Umlilo. Who you guys would remember being called Eleanor, but I changed her name because 1, Eleanor doesn't fit anymore. 2, the name has a meaning that fits her better. 3, cultural reasons. Considering that Umlilo's inner universe culture was based off of a particular African tribe that does exist, I wanted to give her a name that fits that better. So that's a fun little thing. I do need to update stuff with that, but Catcher is a project I'll eventually get to. Right now, I'm too focused on Pillar, so that something can be done on this channel.
But that's all the thing. When it comes to names, it's a tricky thing. Names are tricky things. Because on one end, you want them to be, have a meaning to them. But if you go too hard into the meaning, then all of a sudden, the meaning can lose. You can lose focus on the whole of the character.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Eleanor is Umlilo is the Fear of Fire. This is her. And yeah, if you know anything about, real life African culture, she was based, you can kind of see the inspirations in her design.
Indeed. And
we love
her.
We love the fear mom in this household.
We love her here. Also, looking at another question that I've noticed, which narrative character enjoy tabletop games the most?
Not counting the siblings, because those are the easiest answers in the universe.
Yeah, no. If we had to go with one in the entire narrative, and that's a lot of characters.
I don't think you guys realize how much it is. I actively counted yesterday. It's terrifying. That number's terrifying. But point being, I would probably the first one that comes to mind immediately is Amasha. I feel like Amasha would love tabletop games, especially considering she's been around a while. She needs a hobby.
Yeah. And who is she? Well, we'll get to her when we mention that project.
Well,
but
to that, and also if people are actively questioning, I'll throw her in because I love my girl. But
of course. And Coffee says I could see Gresham as of tabletop board games. I will say this: while you think about it, I would actually say I could see what you mean, but I see Gresham as more of a bibliophile.
Yeah,
essentially someone who, essentially essentially he would be the guy who brags about the books he's been reading, not because he's pretentious and arrogant, but he loves books and takes great passion in them, so he's dying to share what he has read this week.
Yeah, 100% though, if he did, even if he did play it, and I could kind of see him enjoying one way, he's 100% the rules lawyer. He'd probably be like the good type of rules lawyer. He wouldn't be like the very obnoxious one.
I don't know about that.
No, that's fair. Risk player! Actually, no, Coffee, that's a good idea. Risk player. He definitely would be playing Risk.
Oh, yes, I see that.
And also Gresham would also enjoy chess.
Oh, yeah.
Chess.
Yes, of course.
And that gives me
I can agree with.
And that gives me a terrifying thought. In terms of narrative characters in general, I think Gresham might be the only one who has been the closest to beating Samuel's win record.
Yeah, like, let's be honest, that he's the closest. Then here's the thing, to say like, oh no, you can't beat Samuel or Aldor in chess. They are bloody gods. It is not fair to make that comparison.
Yeah, and even then, the fact that Gresham can actually get really close to both of them in that level, I think says a lot about Gresham's intelligence.
Oh yeah, it does.
Like, I don't think you guys realize how good Gresham is in terms of that bloody intelligence of it. It's that alone is god tier.
Mm-hmm. And kind of going and I suppose that's we should also looking at some of the things here. Coffee also says we came up with a lot of ideas way back when about the different dream demon spheres.
Oh yeah, the fears. Because dream demons in canon is actually a slur. Like, it is actually an insult. Because spheres are not demons, and the demons do not consider them so. So it's like, oh yeah, no, you're not human, you're definitely not angelic, so you must be demon. All demons and fears all stare, just like, no.
Yeah, they're not demons. They're closer to, I would say, somewhere between Fae or Eldritch.
Honestly, at this point, nobody knows what they are.
No,
I think Gresham does, but he keeps that a secret. Like, no. Because in case like that's just information not needed. The fears are fears.
Ixnay on the Ruth Tay. Anyway, where were? Let's see here. Yeah, and Samuel's real name being something that cannot be spoken reminded me of the King in Yellow. I've actually never read or seen. I think that the King of Yellow is a book, not by Lovecraft, by someone else. I think it came out around the same time. So I sadly am not too familiar with it, but from the little I've heard of it, I guess I could see the logic. Yeah.
Can I remember soon followed by Brunimus?
What do you say?
Brunimus. That would actually make sense, considering, especially since I think Brunimus brought a lot of other a decent amount of other fears into the spotlight.
The fear was so influential to me that I accidentally made it a joke character that transformed into a character that leads to a very pivotal moment in the archives. That's cute.
The fact that my stuff, even though they're not completed, has been influential to others.
Oh yeah.
That's actually.
Oh, it
really
is.
flattering.
It truly is.
Holy shit.
It is really influential. Like my own projects, including my D&D campaign. And everything. You influence a lot, honey. You don't have face cam, people, but I do, and she's blushing.
Shut up!
Oh, I am enjoying this. Anyway.
No.
But anyway, Exiled, we covered Exiled. I think that if you guys have any Pillar or Exiled question, even if we moved on to other projects, feel free to ask.
Please. Especially considering that by all accounts, one of these projects is still a bit new and people would not be familiar with them. Please, I want to talk about babies. Let me talk about my baby son. Let me talk about my son.
Exactly. We talked about the two Act One projects. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which are in Act Two. It would be the other Colors project. Did we ever think of a name for that particular one?
I think we did. I think it was Orlena's tragedy because but I think that's still a little. We're still questioning a bit on this semantics about that one.
For some reason I thought it was the continuation of the Pillars of Order. I thought that's what you meant when you said a Colors.
Oh.
No, that's Evercord.
That's Evercord.
Fair enough. So, Olena's tragedy is actually Act Two kind of continues what happened. Like, we're not going to spoil what happens in Act One with that particular story, but let's just say that carries over into a story that is in Akolos with a central princess character called Olena, and without saying. And here's the thing: this is a project that we can only say that her nature of things had a lot of implications, but we really can't say more because that would spoil things that happen in Pillars of Order.
I think what's so funny though is the fact that I think that might be by all accounts the smallest project, and that's the least we can say. I think that's the funniest part.
Yeah.
And I'm so mad because Orlena, my child, my baby girl, you're so important to me. You're so important to me specifically. I don't care if nobody else cares about you. You are so important to me.
I will say this, even if we can't talk too much about the plot of that project, we can talk meta stuff about that top. Meta elements of it. More so, because that was originally meant to be a project. The funny thing is, it was a project that Angie and I started early. It started with an idea Angie and I had early when meeting each other. This was like back in, was it 2021 or was it 2020?
I think it was 2020. I think it was actually 2020.
Yeah, like in late 2020. Like, we had started to become really great friends and everything.
Hold up. I'm actually going to look up our DMs quickly.
No, yeah, okay, but do look up, but I'm going to continue.
Yes, please.
So, essentially, it was an idea like, oh, hey, what if we do this, and that? And we started playing with an idea like, oh, let's do this. I'll be very careful with my words right now. I do apologize. But we essentially had this idea, and we talked about it, and thought that we had one direction we thought we would go with it. It would be a very simple, straightforward, very cruel, tragedy, so to speak. Like, it was going to be a tragedy. It was cruel.
Oh my god, are you actually kidding me?
How long has it been?
So it was 2021, the very first week.
Okay, so that's why it was literally in the beginning of the year.
The literal start of 2021 is when this started. Yeah. So, by all accounts, like, everything in our DMs, I think we might have started a little earlier than that then. So it could have been end of very beginning of 2021. It's literally like last week, first week, somewhere around there is where we started.
Yeah, so somewhere around that. The point is, it started out in one way, and we had an idea, and we thought we had a good idea, and we were going to and we started what we could only call like an improvisation moment, I suppose. Like, what would we call that? Like, what would we call that?
Yeah, just an improvisation moment. That's literally what we can
essentially, you know how sometimes when people prepare for a role, they read the script in front of them and they prepare, they have a loud read out loud. It was kind of like that, but it was no script, and we just kind of went with what we felt, with the general idea. And when we started that, we realized deep down, fuck, this is gonna go in a very different direction.
A joke I
and
did.
that
it was like a joke idea that we decided to play with to see what we could work, and then we realized this does work, especially in a very specific idea and way, and we're just like, well,
Well, shit.
I want to
Essentially, it's...
I want to show my child, my wife, my dear. I want to show her, but I'm like, no, that technically would be a bit too much, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we can't. Unfortunately, we can't. At the moment.
My girl, my baby, I love her.
Yeah. Let's just say that. Okay, actually, here's a good thing. Watching Olena's tragedy, we argued earlier you don't need to watch any of them to get the full point, and I think Olena's tragedy stands technically true of this. But this particular one adds a very specific depth to a certain angle.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say I think Orleans Strategy might be the, by all accounts, the one exception to this rule.
Yeah. Yeah, for example, yeah, so I would say ultimately the final, that if you watch Catcher before you watch the others, then fair enough, you will miss several things, but I think that is several things towards the end especially, but watching these in general will give an understanding, appreciation. Aurelia's tragedy is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
So enough of that, and now Evercord, and please, you want to summarize this one?
So I say that this is by all accounts 2 projects because this is probably the case of the most sibling heavy focus of all of the projects. And this is the case that there's 2 projects in one because one focuses on a couple particular siblings, the other focuses on the other at once. So it's the case that while all 4 of them kind of are involved in when we should perform, the focus changes depending on which project.
Indeed. And between these projects, there's also a continuation of the Pillars of Order arc.
Mm-hmm. No,
I will not say more about that. All I will say is that it's a continuation. That's all I will say.
Yeah, I think it's a case that it'd be best if you watch Pillars of Order beforehand, but I think the context within these would be more than enough. So the case that you can kind of get the general gist of it. That's kind of that's kind of the case I want to do, is that even if there is context before, it will be explained enough within that specific story that it's not necessary to watch anything in the past. So you could watch it exclusively and still be fine with it.
I think that's a good summary.
Mm-hmm.
So after that covers Act 2, leaving us to Act 3.
The big boys.
Yeah. Now we have one before the big boy.
To be fair, Project Rebirth is, while probably wouldn't be the biggest of big boys, it's still a pretty big project, especially compared to literally everything else we've done before. Because, one, this is still like one of the finale, this is still the finale for one particular world, and 2, this one's going to be I think, weirdly enough, Project Rebirth might be the heaviest lore-wise, and that's saying a lot.
That is saying a lot.
Actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. One of the Evercore projects is also, like, very heavy lore-wise, but...
Yeah, I think that...
Point being, out of the bigger projects, Project Rebirth is without doubt the biggest one lore-wise, and I think it's because it has to do a surprising amount of heavy lifting the more I think about it. Shit, that might be a problem, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, that's a future problem, literally.
Yeah, no, because Project Rebirth, by all accounts, is, I think, the least developed project at this point in time, and that's just because... There's no other way to put it. There's another thing that has to go on before we do anything big with it. And that particular thing is taking goddamn forever!
Yes, and I want to say what that is. I'm also not gonna say it.
You know what? No, I will. You know what? No, I will say it. Depending on how things go, there might be a potential 8th project that will be before Project Rebirth, and that all depends on what happens. I hope. I'll just say this: I hope it doesn't get turned into a project. But if things do not go our way, it will have to, and that's going to suck. But
yeah, that's the nature of things. That's what we'll say.
If you know, you know. If you don't worry about it. Let's just say,
let's just say this. If you know, like she said, if you know, you know. But even if you don't know, don't worry. You don't need to know to enjoy Project Rebirth. That's all you need to know. So then we come to Catcher.
And then there's Catcher. Actually, no, I didn't say much.
Catcher.
I mean, I didn't say much about Project Rebirth. Like I said, it's the least developed, but I imagine that it would probably be, if I did have to make it to a thing, I think at most it'd be 2 seasons long. They'd be longer, a bit bigger. Probably 2 seasons. Yeah, probably would be 2 seasons long at most, depending on how things go. Because I do have a general idea of what I want with it. It's just a case of details are unknown. But besides that, yeah, going back to the big boy, the one that's taken me.
No, actually, can we give a summary of? Can we give a summary of Project Rebirth at all? Like, can we even do that? Because I realize, like, we have characters, but we don't even have a story for that one, do we?
Yes, we do actually.
Oh, we do? Okay. We just haven't talked about it that much.
Yeah, because it's more of a case of nobody's asked.
That is true.
Nobody's asked about Project Rebirth. All they know is that Amash is the main, in that. And it's more of a case of basically it's a case that Amasha and her boyfriend have to help and Eriko try to get his brother back from who got kidnapped. And that leads to a bunch of different things that gets kinda freaking crazy.
Understatement, but yes.
Especially considering who the BBEG is. God, that's an understatement.
Yes. Anyway, the big boy, Catcher.
And then there's Catcher. I'm gonna say it every time because it's true every single time. A full animated series that goes on for 3 seasons. Maybe 4, but I think the point is we want to try and do this down in 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And we're not talking, you know, like, has-been hotel levels. No. We're going full 20-ish episodes. What Owl House needed to be best season ever. We're going full on Avatar: Last Airbender with this. We're doing a full 20-ish episodes. No, I don't think you guys realize how big this project is. This is the big boy, and this is why it's last. Not only because this is where most things kind of come to be, and before, you know, the narrative's big finale, but it's also because it is the biggest project. And as a result, I need a full-on crew for this. Yeah, I don't think you guys realize how much I need a full-on crew for this.
Yeah, that's gonna be, like, that's something to build up to. That's gonna take years.
Yeah. And if it does for the case that I'm the one who basically does most of it, so be it. I need to at least make the money so that I could make enough money from the channel /Patreon /however. on a more passive level so that I can work on it full time, because I cannot. You guys can already know I'm having trouble with the prologue for 1,001 different reasons, because I'm basically the one doing most. I'm the one doing most of it.
Exactly.
But yeah, no. If you need, I don't think we need a summary of Catcher, but just in case, because you never know who's listening. TLDR. Bruiser Lazarus gets roped into demon hunting. Crazy shit happens as a result. And boy, and let me tell you, I do mean crazy shit. I think this is the craziest thing we'll be working on, period.
I think that's a good summary. I can't think of any other way to put this, really, you know?
Yeah, no.
And... Oh, yeah, like, I think that, essentially, Catcher will be the thing that wraps up everything in all this.
Technically, there might be, like, I don't know, probably like a quote-unquote movie or something afterwards, but that's like specifically siblings. But yeah, no, that is like the final major project.
No, here's the thing, I always thought that in that project, it kind of concludes it all, you know? Like an Avengers thing, for lack of a better word, before it became stale.
The only thing I question about that is because considering the final battle is specifically on the siblings, the other characters aren't.
Yeah.
Especially since Catcher, Brew is the main character, so that doesn't make sense in my head.
I think that's something that will have to be covered in when we get closer.
Yeah,
to
but
that.
yeah, but it is very much a case of that's kind of thing where most things wrap up, and it's just a case of the final conclusion with the siblings, and then it goes off from that, and that's probably like, you know, either like a full-on like an actual movie product, like an actual movie, or like a two-part production, like a quote-unquote epilogue.
Yeah,
but that's something we'll worry about later.
Yeah, maybe we'll take another page of Owl House and do like they did.
We'll see.
We'll see. But that's a whole other.
That is literally Endgame. That is literally Endgame. So
yeah, that is literal. Again, Avengers Endgame. If Avengers actually ended with that Endgame. Anyway. But yeah. So yeah. All right. Let's see. I don't see any other questions aside. Oh, Coffee says question/suggestion. Samuel podcast.
Aren't we literally talking about doing about the idea of a podcast right before we press record? Granted,
yeah, we just said that.
Granted, it was more of a case of a chill podcast of.
Oh yeah, just
probably just
anything.
Us talking media stuff in general, but honestly, it'd also be really funny to basically turn these streams into a podcast of just we talk about productions.
I don't know about streams. I don't know about streams necessarily.
No. You misunderstand. Like these kinds of streams where we do podcasts just talking about productions and just I thought you said made. I thought you said made. No. Sorry. You know, like they would be like these streams where we just kind of go off, kind of talk about the characters and these characters and these ideas, just go off. I think that would be fun, but that's also way too early to say because nothing has been fully produced.
No, we have far too many ideas, but nothing concrete, nothing solid to work with.
We're so far behind. To everyone give an idea, we are so far behind on Pillars for so many different reasons.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that, but yes, we are.
I'm going to talk about it because I'm slightly salty at mostly myself about that. But yeah.
So, But yeah, so I guess so. Those are essentially the projects. Like I can't really think of what is some of the big changes we should establish here that has happened. Like, what can we mention any of them that don't
Um,
spoil things?
I mean, just probably general things with like main characters and such. Because I'm, again, like a lot of the, like there's a lot of people that knew about Amasha forever ago, and let's be honest, hun, she's gone through a lot of changes that she's literally unrecognizable at this point.
That is true, but that I suppose that's true. But what can we again? What can we say? That's not spoilers. I'll repeat the question.
Really depends on what people ask. I mean, I could probably show Masha because that's not necessarily spoiler heavy. It's just okay.
Fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
For example, everyone remembers Amasha for the blue coat and the sandy brown hair, or the green, or green gal, green gal white hair. That was really fun. Really fun design. Love the shapes. This is her now.
Yeah, things have changed.
Actually, no, I could do one a little better. This is her now.
Yeah, again, things have changed.
Like, I love her so much. She's so precious. She's so pretty. Absolute bead. Isaac! I see Isaac. Hey! But yeah, no, so it's kind of crazy. It is like, oh yeah, how much has things changed? A lot. Do you see this? And the thing is, there is a possible chance that Project Rebirth might be fully animated as well. Depends, possibly. If that's the case, I am working with hell in the formative design, and that's okay. I will find a way to simplify this slightly, because I love this design so much. Look at her. Look at her. I love this design. It's so cool. It's so messed up, and that's why it's so cool.
Indeed. But yeah, so she's the main character of Project Rebirth.
And then, of course, if we want to bring the boyfriend in, don't tell me there's a blep chain started in the server. There's a blep chain that got started in the server. Of course there is. Every time I bring her up, I look over my server, my fan server, and look, blep train. Y'all are crazy shits. Y'all are crazy motherfuckers. I love y'all. Me, half an hour ago. No cursing. Care for the cursing. Me now, cursing up a storm because, come on. Anyways, what was I doing? Yes. I'll have to simplify this design as well, but husband. Boyfriend. Look at him. If you don't know who this is Lorian Rivenstorm. He is in Project Rebirth, he is a blood hunter that basically just cross paths with Amasha. And if any of you have memories, yes, they did meet on opposite sides of the crossbow. I am never letting that down. Galvin can kill me for it later. I do not care. They will always meet on opposite sides of the crossbow.
I got nothing else to add. It's just funny.
It's just funny. The thing with this podcast update is the last thing you want to do to only talk about productions but never do extra projection. You always do our pause, character pause. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I want to at least, I think for me it's a case I would love to do those kinds of podcasts after the production is finished, or like after the production has done enough to the point that I can actually start talking about the production aspect, like the behind the scenes.
Indeed.
That's kind of my plan if I do want to do podcasts related to the narrative. Is just let me talk about the production and such after things have already been going on for a while. Because I think those are the most fun to kind of talk of a case of like looking back and seeing like the concepts and everything and how things have evolved.
I mean that's also the thing, and that I think that can be an interesting thing. but and it's like you said, it's like you both said, by talking about the character before it is published, you risk talking spoilers.
Yeah.
And the thing about a character is how they are on the whole. It is a classic saying, the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. And that is so important in this kind of discussion.
Yeah, I don't think you guys realize how long it would be before we do anything related to the siblings, because there is so much we could talk about, and I cannot say any of it because 1, spoilers, 2, there's too much of it that's currently conceptual, and I want to wait until we have it actually figured down in production.
Indeed. Like, the idea itself is solid. Therefore you can edit out what you think are spoilers. Like, yeah, a podcast. If a podcast, we could make a podcast work, then we should do it. Like, we have talked about it, but again, it is far too early to make a solid promise of any of this.
Mm-hmm. I'll see you, Coffee. Have fun on your own stream. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, fun. So yeah, I guess the question is, like, is there anything else is worth? What should we talk about next in this case? Like, because Akolos technically has a main character, but it is small. But everyone's sort of a main character in that one.
Yeah, but with that said, I do.
Gather yourself and inform the sentence, honey.
Son.
Yeah,
I love
Zoidicus
him.
is the
I
closest.
love him so much. You guys have no idea how much I love him. Every story is always subject to change the second you say anything about it. Exactly.
Like things have changed dramatically since we started. Like, things have had to change alone in just the past few months, let's be honest.
I don't think you guys realize how much has changed with the narrative as a whole. And it's kind of freaking crazy.
Also, I see love for Zoidicus, which is always good. But
I think the entire fandom has already
fallen in love.
they've adopted him, honey. Literally, the fan server after that short was posted yesterday, just so many people are like, we adopt him. I should speak of which, how is that short doing? Actually not too bad. Still relatively low, but then again, the freaking world short was kind of, not doing much, and then Monday hit, and all of a sudden it got like hundreds of views. So now we're sitting at 800. Roughly 800. Yeah, Zodikiss is about 72 views. So it's definitely better. Okay, so it's definitely doing better than it did yesterday, and I think I made the best choice by trying to change the thing of changing the thumbnail about that, because I'm like, the thumbnail that it was given was too similar to the world. Changes it to make it a little more unique.
Good call.
Honey Dash about Zodikiss. Zodikiss is the pillar spirit. He is absolute bean, absolute baby boy, absolute people pleaser.
Yeah, that's
Such
a good way to
doormat.
put it.
I love him.
Yeah, essentially, the closest that you could argue about the pillars are, like, if to use real life world examples, is that they are kind of, well, for lack of a better word, demigods or celestial entities.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe them, but yeah, no, the absolute baby boy doormat and his punk-ass girlfriend. I love them so much.
It's difficult not to. So, alright, then there is Exiled, and the main character in that one is undeniably Casey.
And I just remembered, I still got an email. I can't wait for it to get used. That is a way to put it.
That is a way to put it.
That is a way to put it. But Speaking of Casey, I do need to finish sending an email to something.
That's for later. That's for later. That's for later.
Late, goddamn. But I need to update the art for this. But look at her. Look at my queen. Look at her.
Yeah, it's like she stepped out. It's like she decided to step out of the Sleeping Beauty and say, "You know what? I am gonna give this bitch personality."
I guess you could put it that way.
But
also, I just realized the hilarity of having this on the screen.
there is an irony there. We're not gonna go into why. If you know why, don't spoil it. Just
it's funny.
Yes, yes, that's all we say.
It's so funny.
It is. Then we got Olena's tragedy. Surprise, main character is Olena. We're not showing anything that's spoilery, sadly.
Babies. The baby, I love her. My wife, my baby girl.
Next,
my precious.
Next we got Evercord. I guess the siblings are kind of the main character there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the siblings are 100% the main characters.
Yeah.
I'm like boy, son, love him.
Yeah. If anything, Aldo is probably the main. Aldo is probably the main character it is three of the siblings. They are definitely the main characters in this one, I would argue.
Because I'm thinking, Alphonse is definitely one of them. Brielle would also be a big one as well. Also, look at her, I love her. You guys have no idea how much this design makes the neurons just go blah!
Here's the sign, slaps.
Yeah, it's crazy how much this design works. Like, I wasn't completely vibing with the original design idea, but I'm looking at this and I'm like, no, this is so good, I love it. Look at her. And then the last one probably would be Nicole, I would say. Like, I think she's kind of more of she's kind of the one that, I guess, more or less. Actually, no. No, let me think about this. She's very important support in one of them. Her husband might be would be the big support for the other one. Actually, ironically speaking, Samuel's role is very minor here.
Oh yeah, it is. His role is very minor, and that was my design.
Oh, it's true. Also, look at him. Look, I want to kiss him. Please, let me kiss him.
You're gonna marry his voice actor already. Just
oh. That's the point! That was the point!
Okay, I'll take it. But, yeah, so with this and with that, and then, of course, Amasha is the main character for Project Rebirth, and Brew is the main character for Catcher.
Yeah.
It's I don't really know where else to go from here. And I'm not saying that as a way to be like, it's also like, what else can we say that doesn't spoil things? Like, unless we went to the specific lore bits, which is not what this stream is about,
Honestly, if anything, this is probably the best time for questions to come in. Is after we give a general, idea of it. It's more of a case of opening it up for the for the people to ask the questions.
Indeed. I was also asking, to be clear, if there was something before we open up. That's more the question that I was kind of getting to.
Fair enough, and I don't think so.
No, so I will say this, here we go for the rest of the stream, and if there is any, please, any questions are welcome at this point. What? Did I say something wrong?
No. I'm thinking. I'm trying to think about this. This is bothering me to no end.
Oh yeah, because the project, what you're doing right now.
Yeah, because I had an idea for how I wanted this to look last night, and I cannot remember for the life of me, and it's pissing me off.
That's fair.
It also might be the case that the burnout, because it still hasn't gone, is kind of messing with me a bit. But
that is fair, and that's something you gotta let run its course. But
yes, I've let it run its course for 2 weeks now. I am so behind on work. Because
yes,
the burnout hit so bad.
Yes. But yeah, and here's the thing: burnout is a thing. Like here's the thing: like you can't just let your life be on hold forever. Sadly, that's not realistic. But you gotta mitigate things. You gotta find a compromise between things.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be tricky, but that's if you ever face burnout, you gotta give yourself time to recover, but also find time because that's not something that's sold over a weekend with just a couple naps and a few Red Bulls. No, no, no. It's something you need to relax and recover from.
I think the Oblivion hyperfixation has helped a bit, but it's also hasn't
Yeah.
because of how many times the Oblivion has crashed on me because my computer, for whatever reason, is not strong enough. Fucking video memory. I need to upgrade that badly. Apparently.
Sorry. Like either you accept that, either you just accept that, or you go to the older versions. I live with that, but that's a whole other conversation. Not for now.
Yeah.
So any questions? So as a bit, we'll just open the floor once again. If anyone has any questions to the about any narrative-related aspect that we spoke of, ranging from the Pillars of Order to Exiled to Olina's Tragedy to Evercord to Project Rebirth to Catcher, this is a time to have those questions to state those questions.
Mm. Actually, I'm realizing with the naming aspect, I never got into the worlds part because that's a bit of a funny thing because
Yeah, I didn't want to give focus too much on the names because if we focus too much on the names, we'll be here all fucking day.
Yeah, no, because I have way too much fun with the names, but I want to give at least with the world, it was a case of a similar aspect. Mostly, Akola's I think is the exception because I just could not think of anything, so I just turned to fantasy name generator, which is like my last resort, and I hate it. But
yeah,
like Extenia was like the final extension of this war. It was like the biggest extension of this war because it was the most direct with the whole thing of angels versus demons. Judenia, whole thing about. I mean, considering that their supposed god is considered the great judge, it just made sense. And Novus Mundus, because literally the name in Latin means nine of the world. Because there are 9 gods.
Mm. Yeah, so it's just kind of on the nose like that.
Yeah, like I just have fun being on the nose. I just had fun being on the nose. Let me be a little less subtle at times. God forbid, girl, be less subtle. I say that jokingly. Please do not take that as virtue.
No, like here's the thing, like as long as the name works, as long as you're happy with the name, it works. Like sometimes you have to change a name, but like I said before, you got to as long as if a name works, it works. Especially for a planet or a country, you can have a lot more fun with kind of all the nose things because it's not as important as a character's name.
Yeah. Narrative's derpiest fella. I know exactly who he is. I know exactly who it is. It's whiny. Look at this boy. Look at this fella. I love him. He is my son. I love him. Yeah. Look at this little child.
You have a lot of sons. I'm gonna pay a lot of alimony when we get together. Anyway.
No, unfortunately, these are a lot of adoptions. I'm sorry, honey.
Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, but no, I would say that's probably the derpiest fellow you have. Yeah.
He's a little boy. He's a little guy. He's just the smallest sea creature to ever exist. And I love him so much. He deserves the best. I give him treats.
So, I guess the question. Yeah, look at him. I'm trying to think of any other thing to think of that could be fun to say.
Nerdiest fella. I think we've already said it was Gresham.
Yeah.
Like,
Brittany.
Brittany.
He wrote Brittany by accident. It was like Brian. It was like Brittany. Oh, Bryony. So that was funny.
So funny, actually. That is
but
so
nerdiest
funny.
fella. Yeah, nerdiest fella has to be Gresham. If not him, it's Alina.
Orlena would definitely be, considering she.
Yeah.
Actually, could we actually say the inspiration of the character that mainly inspired Orlena to give an idea, or do you think that might be a bit too much?
I think it's too much. Like, I would love to say it.
Fine.
We are trying.
I know,
we are way too early into this to have that conversation.
Fair enough.
Yeah, which is again another. Yeah, I would say Gresham, but Olena's a close second.
She's a very close second.
Very close second. Yeah. But oh. No, but that's the.
Yeah, don't delete the scream, alas.
I'm sorry. So unfortunately, Isaac, it will never go away. That is funny.
That is really...
But okay, so any other questions?
Please, I am begging, I am pleading, I need something while the rain fucking goes on, because it's been pouring rain here. No, I gotta show this match. It's so funny. You know what? Here's a question about producing your story. Since I know you've done comics YouTube for a long while, do you suggest doing YouTube Shorts to get your story to the public, or other ways? I think it all depends on a lot of things. I think it's just a case of what do you feel comfortable doing, and I guess doing for a while. Because the reason I've been doing shorts is because I take a while with some of my bigger stuff, and the shorts are a nice way to get something easier out while I still work on stuff from behind the scenes.
Indeed. Another thing to consider with that is it also kind of depends what story you want to tell. Because here's an idea to throw out. Just take this one for free. What if, for example, you try to create a story that is based on individual, say, law entries that tell a bigger story? Like logs that are told every day. Like a short would be perfect for that, I think.
You could also probably. That is a possibility. The other thing I'm thinking of are projects like Welcome to Night Vale, Magnus Archives, things that are more audio based that you could probably might take a bit of in theory could take a bit of time, but if you find that easier to do than say drawing a comic, that could also be something. Yeah. The reason we do the shorts,
that's true.
Yeah, no, really for us the shorts are just a way to introduce concepts and ideas.
Indeed.
And kind of give something for you guys to kind of munch on while we work on the bigger projects.
Exactly. Another thing to also consider, and this is actually a good thing, and this will come as hypocritical considering who's about to say it. But I think it's good. But I think it's good to speak about it. Let's be honest. I think that in today's media, across video games and movie and TV series, like we live in a very large, expansive format of entertainment. I would argue. Like I'm not saying that movies, are like, oh, no one watches movie anymore, but with things with the past few years of Game of Thrones and new series and other series that's come out and popular cartoons, we live in an era that is defined by larger projects. And I think that in that aspect, I think that it's very tempting. The lore of the whole world. Like, obviously, I am the biggest slut for lore. You know, I'm gonna be honest.
I think.
But
no, I'm gonna say it. I think you are single-handedly the main reason why the narrative has gotten as big as it has.
yeah, it is. It is. I was like, yeah, it is. Like, wait, I had to take a moment.
Yeah, no, like, I know I'm pretty bad when it comes to lore. I think you just made it so much worse. And that's both.
What do you mean you're bad with lore?
No, like, I'm bad with, giving a lot of lore. You just made that problem worse.
Oh, okay, fair enough. You were not clear. I was like, are you either bad at making lore or you're bad at keeping a lid at lore? Because I would not believe the former with you.
Yeah, no, I like to think that I'm pretty good at lore, especially considering my original endeavors with trying to make lore. I've gotten so much better.
Oh yeah.
There's a reason why we have a lore problem with this with the narrative.
Yeah, and I will say that I'm the guilty party of that.
Mm-hmm.
I do apologies everyone. But here's the thing that I'm coming to it, and this is an important lesson in and that I've kind of understood from reading a lot of things, and also understood because whether you read, here's the thing, reading lore by itself is a very big important tool, and this is something that has, and let's just say, we live in an era where lore has become a huge thing. Like, I would argue, since we've come to say, I'm trying to think, how long would you say that lore has been as popular as it is? When do you think that started? I would say it really kicked off around the Dark Souls release date, around 2011, and grew exponentially shortly after that.
2011 might have been like the first offender, but like the first moment. But I think the big explosion was 2014 with FNAF.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like
FNAF is the biggest offender.
Yes, I was actually gonna get to that. FNAF is like the poster child of how lore exploded. And here's the thing: is a whore for lore is a good rhyme. Exactly. Yeah, that is exactly what I am. But here's the thing: going with the topic as it were, and all those things. I'm trying to find the words here. Yeah, with all these things like Dark Souls and such, with that was when it started becoming popular. Like, lore has always existed in video games. Like, look at Resident Evil, look at the Elder Scrolls games, look at pretty much every game. There is lore of some form in all those in video games and in TV series stretching far back. Dungeons and Dragons have always had lore. There's always been lore in projects, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but but the thing is, the thing I'm getting to is that it has exploded in not long. It exploded in this century, and FNAF was like the ultimate, for lack of a better word, Super Mario 64 explosion of lore, and everyone loves it, everyone wants it, and craves it at this point. I would argue. Would you say that too, as well? Or
I would say that, yeah.
Yeah. It looked like you were about to say something else, so continue. Or did I misread you?
It misread me.
Okay, my bad. But here's the thing. And obviously, Undertale, I think, started it was No. Honeydig. FNAF came out 2014. Undertale came out 2015. So
I think they're saying that. Uh, I think no. I think they're saying that Undertale probably would have been the culprit if it came out before.
oh, okay,
I think.
my bad.
I could be wrong about
Sorry.
that, but
Oh, I'm sorry. In that case, I misread it. No, but if that's what you said, no, yeah. But with that said, if it had come up before, yes, it would have. It would have started that stuff as well. Like those two games came out at a time where kind of exploding, showing how we wanted it.
oh
But let's
no,
also be honest.
no. She thought FNAF did come before, or Undertale did come before FNAF. Yeah, no, it was.
Oh yeah,
FNAF
no,
before
FNAF came
Undertale.
out. Yeah, that's why we had that's actually why the the video for William Afton came out last year on my channel. Sorry for the shameless plug-in. Uh, because it was the 10th anniversary that year.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna try to do something the same thing with Undertale this year, but that's a question mark, honestly.
Could you say that again? I wasn't listening. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say it's like we're gonna try to do the same thing with Undertale this year, but that's a question mark.
Yeah, we hope, but we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we say for now. But
Time is an illusion. Agreed.
yes, but no, but so it exploded, and that's just here's the thing. We could go into deep about that and all stuff and why that happened. That's not what the question is, because the question was, what is about writing tip, and this is where I'm getting to. We all love lore. Here's the trap with lore that I will say right away. Lore itself is an interesting concept because it builds things in your narrative. It is something that can stretch out and make something more fleshed out. Like that's the point of folklore. It's stories you share with others to essentially build this sort of this picture of something to get an idea of things. And I mean, let's be honest, what is mythology but just folklore that has a lot that is much older? Exactly. And we got an idea of all these stories of divinity, and we fell in love with those. And we fell in love with things with FNAF and piece it together lore. We fell in love with Undertale with all the lore. Here's the trap, though. You can have the best lore in the world, but if you don't have characters in that story, you're just dealing with a very interesting world with flat characters.
Mm-hmm.
The world, it's of course the world is important, especially if you try to develop, because we need to understand how the world works. So you obviously need to do that. But while the world is the setting and everything, it's super important. It is the characters in that world that drive the plot forward. They make the setting change through their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, as a villain connoisseur, always places importance on the villain. The villain is a character that needs to be someone who changes, that affects the world and changes it.
And oh boy, do we have fun with Samuel in that regard.
Oh yeah, we have fun with Samuel in that regard. And in the event where, and in every case where you have a villain, you have to kind of ask yourself, what do they bring and change to the narrative of your story? And if you're wondering, like, oh, should I go with the idea of every villain is the hero of their own story? No, that's not what you should do. Go with a villain that feels right for the setting, for the characters, for you, and go from there. I think that's my advice. Does that sound good advice to you?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing something of writing something about writing tips to kind of keep some sort of trend going with this, of tips about stories and all that. Tips on writing. Plan everything out beforehand. Have a good
Oh, yeah.
idea of, have a good outline to have a good idea of what you want. If things do change going so be it. But it's good to have a general idea of where you want to start, where you want to go, and where you want to end. You can figure out the details you can figure out the details as you're kind of going along and trying and develop stuff. But before you start writing anything, have an idea of the outline of your story.
Exactly. Like, I think the same writer is behind both these stories. Like, if you ever, I don't know, Lost might be a series most of you have heard of but never experienced. It might be a bit before some of you in this room. Or it might be just before when you were young and you didn't get into it, whatever. But here's the thing: the guy who wrote the concept, who wrote Lost, was a writer behind Lost, also was a central writer in the first Star Wars sequel, I think. And for those who have watched the Star Wars sequels, like they set up a mystery of, Rey's parents, for example. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
In the first movie, they set up that as a bit of a mystery, like a thread hanging loose. The idea behind it, as far as I come to understand, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I've used this example, and if I'm wrong, I do apologize. But the example still stands. The message is still, still stands. Is the idea of like if you want to just write a mystery and then just kind of like write the story without having a solid answer. Yes, you can do that. I think there are stories where you kind of like just went with the flow and created and could come to something beautiful. Like, ironically, the narrative has been on that boat where we thought we started out with something, but we came to something completely different when we went on. But that's only. But here's the big difference: we did it in our planning stages, not the production stages. That's a huge difference.
I've just been struggling with the details in my own writing stories. I know what I want, but I cannot execute it. I actually speak of the narrative. I think I'm gonna kind of pull the curtain a bit back on this because we've been dealing with a similar problem. Mm-hmm. It's a case of having an idea but not sure how to execute it.
Yeah, and execution, I'll just say this right now, can be the biggest of bitches.
Because you can have a good idea, you can have a idea for the story, but if you don't know how to write it or like how to execute it, that can be a problem, and that can also really slow down, if not stop writing. I think the best way to put it is figure out. I think the first thing is, what sort of genre do you want to write? Do you want to, write this as some sort of mystery or like some sort of horror? Do you want to try to find a way to build up to something? It's a case that you gotta think of it not just from the story, but from the writing and how you want it to flow. Unfortunately, that's a lot easier said than done.
That is easier said than done, because that's both liberating, because like, in that case, I'll just take inspiration from this and work from there, but it's also limiting because of the nature of genres,
Yeah. If I write, I'm struggling once in a while, but it helps out having a moral of the story at the end of each arc, if that helps anyone. Yeah, no, that's true too. If, like, trying to find some sort of, I guess, theme or, more of the story could also be something as well as to, I think the best way to put it is if you could figure out what you're building, what you're trying to write up to, that might be able to help a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing also, kind of like, there's people who have done, and that said that you start with figure out the ending first and figure out the path to that ending. Some people have said that, and I've heard some people say that at some point, and that's both a good idea and a bad idea, like everything. Because on one end, you can think like, oh, but then I just work up to that, and that is true. If you have an ending in mind, and you could just take the decisions that will lead to the ending, because you're in control of the story, so it would be like that. The thing is, as you go with the project, you also have to be aware that you might accidentally change things. Meaning that the ending you thought you were certain enough at that end game may become completely different based on how you took the journey there.
I will say this: Catcher's Ending has gone through a lot of changes.
Oh yeah,
because of things that have been developed.
indeed.
But
And
I think it's also the case that, full disclosure, I'm the kind of person who has a good idea of the beginning and a good idea of the ending. I have so much trouble with the path because I don't know how. I do have trouble sometimes with knowing how I want to do it, and more so of a case of what do I do to make it interesting? What can I add that could kind of weave its way there? Because I could make a straight line to it. That's not fun. And for me, it's a case of I have trouble trying to think how I want to add stuff to make it feel more full without adding stuff for the sake of adding stuff. It's trying to find that balance of filler and needed material. And for me, that's where I have trouble with, because because that is a very fine line, and I'm still trying to learn it.
oh yeah, and here's okay. I think it's important to know what perspective you're trying to tell and understanding the opposing ideals / why others are opposed to it. That is true. That is true because you are going from the character's perspective in the end. Like they are the main character is the one who is carrying the story, and so the question is, how do they experience the world? And that's another question. I mean, let's be honest. That's the entire concept of Wicked.
Yep. Oh boy, can I go on a tangent about Wicked, but that's neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor there. But yeah, so again, that's why. But as a person, I mean, I'm at heart a psychologist. I'm a heart a law guy. I look at primarily characters. I look at primarily characters because they are the ones that drive the narrative in the end. They are the one that chooses their action. They are the ones who can heal and help others, or hurt and destroy others, depending on what they do, or heal or hurt themselves with their actions. There is a whole dynamic there. And that's why I put such an emphasis on villains and making them work. And it also going with the aspects of, like, I've been struggling with, like Gray said, I've been struggling with details in my own writing and stories. I know what I want, but I cannot execute it. The thing is, like, yes, a lot of details, and the thing is, like, that's a tricky thing with lore, and that's why I say that there's a trap with lore. Because lore is interesting by itself. Lore is really interesting. I love lore. But if you just give it without it just as a straight block, I mean, that's also a problem that old games used to do it back in the day. They gave it in large text that you had to read through, and it felt less like engaging them in the lore and more like schoolwork, for lack of a better word. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good thing that you could do with lore. Like, if you have lore of the world and you're very happy with the lore, that is good. Here's the important thing, though. If your lore does not tie together with the things that are happening, you should reconsider putting too much emphasis on them. I think that's a good lesson, too. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of what could be a good thing. I mean, here's actually a good thing. Think of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, filled with this fantastical world with beautiful languages that was established and written out and all that good stuff. But if you look at in the background and realize that there was a lot of things that was not present, as far as I understand it. Like, a lot of details were added. There was a lot of lore in the background, like the gods and all that stuff, and that's not really, portrayed that significantly in the main stories. It makes sense. because it's not really relevant to to the main story, is it?
No, it really isn't.
One thing I can to add about characters, I think sometimes you need to have them actually around if they made a huge impact. You can let their presence be known through other means, e.g., Marika in Elden Ring. Yes, that's a good example. And another example to add to that, speaking of which, Sauron. Sauron is pretty much never physically present aside from the world's worst case of pink eye. I don't care if that joke wasn't funny, I'll stick with it. But no antibiotics can help that. But no, but that is actually a good example because. But I would say that's a good example because again, because his presence in the story is not as important as the fact that his ring is present. His ring is arguably the main villain of the story, and it doesn't say a goddamn word.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good way to do it with. Actually, we could probably this is like the tiniest of spoilers, but like with a lot of the narrative stuff, just the gods are very much. The gods, the siblings, aren't always going to be present. In fact, if most of them, they're barely present. Half of them, they're barely present at all. Actually, no, there's only 2 that are barely present, but they still leave a major impact in one way, shape, or form.
Indeed. And that's a tricky thing. And here's the thing, it's when do I know when to do that? Do I do that with any gods of this realm? Oh, that's the thing. That's also another That's a tricky. That is so contextual. I'm trying to think of a good example here.
Yeah, gods are the easiest examples to give, but you... Wait, no, I got a decent idea. Politis from Epic the Musical. He's only in for 2 sagas before he dies, and yet his impact is felt throughout the entire musical.
Yeah. Poseidon is only in 2 songs. Well, 3 if you count the epilogue of Keep Your Friends Close.
For 600 Strike-On.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. That to me, in my head, there was just 1 song because they were so tightly knit. But no, you're right.
Yeah, but point being, it's a lot of these characters only come in for a bit, and yet they have such major impact. So, or how Penelope isn't necessarily seen until literally the final saga, and yet she's the sole reason Odysseus does literally everything.
Yeah, let's actually take this and think about this for a moment. The story with Penelope as a character. When you think about the romance, it is kind of a shitty romance, on paper. Because the whole thing is that it is a character we'll never meet until the final act. We only know a bit from a man who is, let's be honest, a simp. On paper,
you're not
on paper, when you think about it. Let me finish, honey. Anyway. No, but the point is, all the paper. Here's the thing. Obviously, the final product of this relationship is that is a very loving, and you understand the chemistry between them, and that is entirely on the execution. Because let's be honest, if this was not executed properly, we might as well have a case where they only meet and say hi, and they're just I'm home, yay! That is not a narratively satisfying reunion for the audience.
Mm-mm.
But the way that Epic did it shows shows how these two people, even if they only share one song with each other, how well they work together.
Mm-hmm.
And also bringing the full theme of the story to its final stop.
Mm-hmm. Literature Hamlet's dead. Yeah, no, that's a good point as well.
That is also a good example. Yes, yes. Yeah. And here's the thing: in narrative, that's called a hook. I would say, like a narrative hook. I think the name is. Essentially, it is also like it is the objective. It is the very thing that it is the catalyst that brings this. Oh, sorry, that brings the story forward. And yeah, they could just have a short moment, but their involvement in the plot is so big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also another thing with details. How much details do you add? The best way to argue this, I think there are two things to. I think there are three things that you need to accept about that. Actually, with three things that would be a good way to go forward. And you can argue me. I'm sorry if I'm taking too much, basically. I'm sorry.
As you can tell, we like our stories.
Yeah. But may I?
Go ahead.
First thing is, think of relevance, like we stated before. Think how it kind of is relevant in some aspects and not. Is it relevant to even bring up? For example, here's using Lord of the Rings as an example. How many in this room are aware that Sauron is not like the devil in his universe? He's the servant of a dark demon god, essentially. That is the incarnation of darkness. How many here actually know this?
I raised my hand. People can't see, but can't see face cams.
Yeah, we have one raised hand. If you know, just say, just give us either as a yes or me, just a simple one word.
Also, guys, I'm actually doing stuff. Please be proud of me. You have no idea how big this is, actually.
I'm happy for you, honey. But and I'm not seeing anyone, so I'm gonna assume that either we have not gotten to that part of the video, or
we have.
Okay, in that case, I will assume that if I see someone while I'm speaking, I did not know that, says one. But no, essentially yes. But here's the thing. Yes, he was kind of a main thing, and I'm not entirely, and I forget exactly how he is connected and what happened to him afterwards. That's not important right now. What is this question? If this guy, whose name is Morgoth, by the way, or I think another name might be Melkor, but for now let's say Morgoth. If he was present in Lord of the Rings, like he was actually there as a main threat, wouldn't that kind of ruin the pacing of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Is his role actually necessary in the story of Lord of the Rings? And the thing is, I would argue no, because the story is about Sauron. Now, does Sauron have connections to it, and is there a whole lot of to it that actually becomes relevant for, say, Gandalf's character? Yeah, there is actually. But there's not lore that is relevant to mention in the books, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also another thing I'm noticing with Yuka wrote, Fireweave stated that, isn't there also something about wanting to establish a save the cat moment, get the people to root for the protagonist? To which Honeyed Ink stated, save the cat is something some authors use to establish a good guy. It's not necessarily just the protag, but it's a way to gain reader empathy for our character. And yeah, that is essentially a way to highlight good qualities, and then you can do whatever you want with them. I've never heard the term save the cat, have you?
No, I haven't actually.
No. It is a good way to do it, but the thing is that is just another tool that could show a good, like, oh, just an easy way to show, like, he's a good guy, you don't need a quick show don't tell kind of thing. But it could also be another tool to be like, trust this person, and thus it becomes more devastating when this guy is a traitor, for example. Because that's the thing, and that's the thing to learn, like, about lore. If you have a lot of lore and it pertains to a character, then consider, instead of dumping it all at once, segment it. Give it over the course of a journey and kind of help us understand. If you feel it is relevant, then give it naturally through conversation. Give it naturally through events that happen in the world. And I would say that's the thing. And to actually save the cat leads us to point number 2. It all comes down to, there are many ways to execute many various tools. And I think that you could do it in any kind of way. What do you... Wait, like, can you think... I got nothing right now, but do you have an idea, honey? Like, how you can execute one tool in many different ways? Use one tool in many different ways, I mean.
I feel like there's a very obvious answer in my head, and my brain's just like, nope. But
Honeydink says, save the cat is something like Disney princesses having their animal friends to show that they are pure, innocent, but also friendly in a natural way. Yeah. Exactly. But you could also use that to, in a, well, let's call it quote-unquote subversive way. I'm careful with using the word subversive, because that is because that can quickly become pretentious. If you're not careful. But now I'm definitely a hypocrite for calling something pretentious, but I accept my You okay?
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Don't mind me.
Right. However, there's also, like, kill the dog, i.e. Dio from JoJo, and kick the puppy, comedy effect. Well, Hancock, but also BG3 when you can kick the squirrel. Well, I can speak. And yeah, there are things like that you can use to various effects. Like, you can give empathy and also take away empathy for a character immediately. And there are also ways that, and it comes down to execution. And that, to me, comes to the third and final point that I want to give. Accept this truth. Not everyone will love what you do. And you're gonna make mistakes. That is not me being disparaging, and that's not me saying that, oh, you suck. No. Because if we all learned to be perfect after one failure, the world would be pretty stale and monotone. We learn through experiencing, we learn through doing. And that's the most important thing. Accept feedback, accept drawback, but in the end, accept that don't lose that true soul that you gave to the project to begin with. There are many ways to skin a cat, after all. Speaking of which, where is Simon?
I'm so used to the fact that it's like, oh, the cats would come in here, forgetting I closed the door so they wouldn't come in here during stream.
Fair.
But yeah.
Also, and hi, Kitty.
Speaking of cats, hi, Kitty.
Yeah. If ever porch were perfect, we never.
Exactly.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
No, that's like the best way to put it, honestly.
Yeah, it's a very good way to look at it. As for, I hope not to lose my motivations. Well, that's the thing. You will all go up and down. We'll always lose the motivation, gain it back through the Stranger Things. That's something we just gotta work through. Do I have the best suggestion for that? No. I wish I did.
Especially those that are a little less than neurotypical. That is
Yeah.
a hard thing to do. A hard thing to do
Oh, yeah.
because not every solution works for everyone, and even then, even if you do have a solution for yourself, that's not 100% going to work every time.
No. So I'm not gonna say do this, like drink a cup of tea or do goat yoga or something. I'm not gonna say that. Though I will say do goat yoga, not because it helps motivation, but just because that is such a fun idea.
How do I do? I'm bad with ideas. Let me go do something.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I've heard people who've gone into the shower and come out with the best ideas. But that's the thing. Just find a place where you can think, let your mind flow, and kind of go from there. And that is far easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I did see one question that I think could be fun before I forget. Do any of the siblings like cereal, and if so, what kind?
I've actually never considered. I'll be honest. I don't see any of them really being cereal eaters. If I'm going to be completely honest, I don't. I could be wrong about that, but I'm not. I'll have to think about that a bit more. But I do not see any of them actually really eating cereal much.
I don't see them eating much in general.
Obviously, for reasons, but that's besides the point.
Exactly. But I can't really think of a cereal either.
Also, yeah, no. Inspiration in the funniest of ways is also a very...
Indeed. Yeah. Important thing I want to bring up, especially since brought up what people take away from it. Everyone perceives the story differently, and you can always control it. And then, no honey bunches or oats. I imagine Yofi and Atticus have tried many different kinds of cereal. Yofi because she is genuinely curious. Atticus because she sometimes takes, not always legal substances and baked into pastries, and decided, you know what, I got the munchies.
She's had some very fun cereal combinations.
Yeah.
Why did that come into mind?
You know those alphabet cereals? Alphabet cereal. I imagine if Aldor ever eats them, he has to eat them alphabetically.
Yeah.
He cannot. If he takes a spoonful and he has A, B, C, D, but if K is that, he has to poke it out.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. Also, quick tip for speaking of that I thought of for Fireweek. Yeah, I keep my notes app up at all times. It's because sometimes you may just have an inspiration. You're just sitting on the bus, you are driving your car, you're going on a bike, you are just taking a walk, you're just out there, and all of a sudden, boom, you have an idea. And then you forget it. And just write it down. Because here's the thing, even if that idea never is used, you have it written down.
Full disclosure, our personal server is literally meant for when we make random ideas and random thoughts.
Yeah, indeed.
Literally, for the narrative category, we have channels for each project and world, and I will just randomly throw down, possible ideas, whether it be animatic, story, silly little tidbits, anything.
Yeah. Will all those things be used? Maybe. Will all the things... Maybe, maybe not. Depends on the idea.
Honestly, no, because a decent amount of ideas actually contradict one another. But it's always a case of throwing it down just so I don't forget it, and then we can discuss it at a later time.
Exactly. And then when it comes to actually getting to that project, we have a good idea, and then we just form things through those ideas.
So you're saying Aldor has OCD? Yes.
100%.
It is actually canon that he has OCD.
Yeah. One of the first things I did when I became part of this group is that I just asked, "Do you want me to psychologically analyze the siblings?" Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I literally his literal first assignment. Psychologically analyze these characters, please, thank you. So, to the surprise of nobody, most of the characters is neurodivergent in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it is not surprising. But even then, if they are not neurodivergent, there is always something, and then you can argue about how do you qualify, for example, a godlike being like Aldor? Yeah, now OCD is very much the case for him, which I find hilarious. Not because, for the record, also it's not hilarious because he has any kind of mental disorder. It's funny because it's Aldor.
It's funny because it's Aldor.
And it fits him far too well.
Mm.
But that's also the thing, important, if you analyze the character, just because they do have something from, a psychological mental disorder doesn't mean that they're a good person or a bad person. It's just a way to understand them a little better. I've seen that people make their own servers just a minute, and also in that because it helps with organizing and it feels like you're communicating about it. Exactly. Yeah, find a way. And here's the thing: if you do it on Discord, if you do it on your phone, if you have a notebook you walk around with, I know there are several note apps you could use that I've heard of that are interconnected to to a cloud. There are so many ways you could go do it. The only thing that comes down to it is that you do it in a way that fits you.
I'll also say, on top of all these channels, we also have a shit ton of Google Docs that we use. It's actually kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, we are overriders in this.
Yeah, my head canon. Akis is autistic. Akis is ADHD. That's the canon part.
Yeah, she is very much ADHD, although neurodivergent, and ADHD and autism, while definitely distinct, are part of a sort of neurodivergence cloud here. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm just saying. General neurodivergence. The specifics we will get to another time because that's not very important. But point being,
that's for a whole other stream. That's for a whole other stream.
Yeah, but point being, TLDR. Most characters in the narrative, the siblings included, are neurodivergent. I think it's safe to say, I'm actually thinking, are all the main characters neurodivergent? Because I think the only two questionable ones...
No.
The only two questionable ones I can think of off the top of my head are Zodicus and Casey.
Those were the ones I thought of, and I'm gonna say it right now. Neither of them are neurodivergent. I'm just gonna say that. The only thing, here's the thing, that in this aspect, you're confusing the different thoughts and curiosity and natures for neurodivergence. And then again, let's be honest, it's a spectrum. If they have it, they are so low that you would not consider that.
To be fair as well, we were also talking about the later protagonists that are 100% neurodivergent, and just putting a bubble, and then I thought, I'm like, wait, no, putting it all together, those two probably aren't neurodivergent.
Oh, no. 100% not. I don't think of terms of all the main characters. It's I think specifically a character, because when you start generalizing, that's a whole other problem. But that's a whole other can of worms.
I also find it funny that the Act 1 main protagonists are not neurodivergent. The Act 2 and Act 3 protagonists are.
Oh, yeah, kind of, yeah. I'm not going to go into that, though. That's a whole other can of worms.
Well, because, again, the siblings are neurodivergent. We've already established Bru's ADHD. I will fight about Orlina, and I'm pretty sure Amasha's also probably also ADHD. I'm actually gonna fight about that as well.
Well, the reason I have a little bit of problem, for example, with Amasha, for example, is the reason that she's also a fae. She's very much a fae. And here's the thing: I'm not saying like, oh, you're saying that fae can't be, can't be, a neurodivergent. No, it's because because you have to understand the nuances of each person and race of those kind.
Yeah, to be fair, we haven't exactly done much with them. You haven't exactly dissected Amasha much.
No, we're not dissecting Amasha, mainly because we're not come to that point, but yeah. Also, Honey, Notion is nice. It's all devices that basically you make your own website about your story. I use work, and it makes me productive because it has writing templates.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Even if it's like fan work, having some sort of organization down helps a lot, especially if a silly idea just explodes something bigger. If an idea starts being big, go for it. Like, just please organize. It helps.
Yeah. And sometimes it might just be a small idea that is just, say, one single video or a few shorts, and that's all it be. And that's fine too.
Or in a writing form, like one chapter, and that's fine.
Yeah. A short story.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it can be sometimes. And that's not a bad thing. That's just something. That's just part of the creative process.
Exactly. Not every work has to be big. Not every work has to be grand. It doesn't have to be this large spectacle. It can just be short things that are just as impactful.
Exactly.
Like, personally, I think my favorite thing I've ever written was a poem of a character after a TTRPG campaign. I think that's like my favorite piece of work I've ever done. It's so small. It's so, by all accounts, it's insignificant, and yet it does so much to dissect the character in literally two pages.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's just the small things, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes it will be big stuff like I'm very proud of the Afton video. Thanks again, Honey, for all that help with that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and it's gonna be things like if we're making other things, they're gonna be much smaller, and I'm looking forward to those because there are many ways to look at things. And the interesting thing is the creative process in and here's the thing, whether it is writing a whole story or analyzing a character, analyzing a character and telling, and portraying their side of the story, so to speak, analyzing them. However it comes forth, the heart of it all is something that cannot really be described in words, and that's that unknown factor that we all know exists. And here's a good example if you are familiar. In Jekyll and Hyde, the significant potion that he uses in with the whole Jekyll and Hyde business, there is his potion eventually stops working properly because he finds out that there was an impurity in one of the salts he was using, an unknown impurity that he did not know. So he could not recreate the potion because of that unknown impurity that he wasn't aware of. And that's creation in a nutshell. You can have all the ingredients, but it is that unknown fact, that unknown impurity, that often elevates something. It's impossible to say how that is, but that kind of comes down in a sincerity aspect that only you, the creator, can have. That is part of a long journey of creativity. Maybe I got a little bit preachy there, but this is where the conversation went.
I mean, I think that's something to kind of keep in mind with when it comes to creation in a nutshell. It doesn't matter how big or how grand it is. I think the best way is just being sincere and being passionate. Because there's a lot of smaller projects that get just as much love as the big, even more so than the bigger ambitious projects. Indeed. In fact, sometimes the small things get bigger because they started out in a way and grew. taking FNAF. FNAF 1, 10 years later, almost 10 years later, not almost, over 10 years later, I think is considered the best in the series because it was so simple.
Yeah.
Is it my favorite? No, but it's definitely high up there, personally. But I also see like a bunch of discussion about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was so simple and it did everything so effectively.
Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, when it comes to FNAF, it's like, oh, but what do I do to kind of recreate that? FNAF was a lightning in a bottle, let's be honest. Like, it was a project that was meant to be 3 games. It was meant to be Scott Calvin's final project, but was like, nah, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And it exploded. Because all the elements were there, and then that unknown, unpredictable impurity was there that, was it the lore that he provided? Was it one part of the lore? Was it the YouTube reaction it did? What was it? That is a whole other debate. But that's the thing.
Uh-oh. Oh, come on! Hold up, guys. Hold up. Alright. Discord actually crashed. I hate it. Why? The fuck you mean? Discord is not pinned to my thing. What do you mean it's not pinned to my thing? That's like the app I use arguably use the most because it's the one that makes me around people. Hold up.
Hello. Hi. What happened?
Discord crash.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. But yeah, so it's impossible to say for sure, and what isn't gonna work, but it's that sincerity. Go in with that sincerity, and even if it does explode, you have created something wonderful. But if you go in with the mentality that I want this to be successful, I want this to be the greatest thing ever, I want to do this and that. Yeah, that's kind of that's a tricky thing to do, and that's gonna need. There are experts who know how to manipulate that stuff, surely, but that's also again kind of a chance thing. Don't go in. The kind of mentality is, don't go in to create just to get famous. You could, but could bite you in the ass. Go in to create and share your creation with others. But stability also is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, the biggest, with me, with the entire thing of KMS, we have a lot of projects. We're just also naturally ambitious as shit. I don't want this to be the biggest thing. I do not want this to be a has-been hotel thing or amazing digital circus. I just want this to be loved by a decent amount of people and consistent enough that I have a decent fan base that I could actually make a somewhat stable income out of this. I want this to be my job.
Yes.
I do not care if this becomes, FNAF and I become absolutely rich about it. Would that be awesome? Yeah, but that's not what I want. I just want a decent stability. I just want some decent stability of a project that I absolutely love and adore. I think you guys could tell I love these characters dearly. I hold them so close to my heart.
Yeah, you hold them so close to your neurodivergent.
Yeah, no. Let's be honest. These lovely people, these lovely characters are the reason I have figured out so much about myself, and I cannot replace it for life of me. But yeah, it's like because I think sometimes, I think some people think that because of how big I want to make this, I want to make this the greatest thing. No, I just want this to be big enough that I can have some sort of stability. I don't care if this gets millions upon millions of views and it's everyone's trying to copy me. It's just I just want to tell really funny stories and find a way to make this my job. I want this to be my career. At most. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. If that's the thing, don't create because you want to create.
not because you think you could revolutionize something. If you go into that mentality, then you will shoot yourself in the foot because that is arrogance.
Mm.
Now, if your project will revolutionize, it's gonna do it on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And it will, because fame is a difficult thing to predict.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, we're all creators. We all love what we do. And as long as you have that love, and as long as you have fun, well, then what's stopping you?
Exactly.
Also, I think that we should wrap up here.
I love how half of it just became a case of how does one write? Asked by answered by two people who are very passionate, obviously very passionate about writing.
Obviously. Also, and Kitty does ask us. Also, in needing input, Kreuger, what MLP creature would Samuel be in your opinion? So he goes for Anne about Yofi. Boring answer is Tyrek.
I will say this, I'm actually slightly disappointed in you, Kitty, because I know that you did a really cool thing with Akis. You're telling me she wouldn't be a Draconequus. But if I had to think, normal pony, for, if you want to go, like, I'm gonna go, like, normal pony and, like, overall creature. Normal type of pony, unicorn, because she's the magic god. She's, like, the pure magic god. But if we're gonna go with creatures across the entire thing, probably a Breezy. Breezes feel very fey.
I also imagine that another way to look at it. It's difficult with Samuel because I think the closest would probably be either an alicorn or whatever Tyrek is, you know?
Yeah, but Draconequus is very chaotic. Like, that is...
No. I'm talking Samuel here.
I know, and I'm sorry, I saw Kitty's response. It's just like, I gave what Akis is because Ghost, but it's like, yeah, she's also chaos. Her domain is chaos. She would probably be a Draconequus because of Discord. If you can find a way to be silly about it to give Ghost, yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Also, guys, I'm actually doing stuff. You guys have no idea how big this is. Because I actually was dealing with, like, the worst burnout all month. And the fact that I actually have something of a storyboard. And also, guys, this actually does look really cool.
It does.
I'm actually really proud that I'm actually getting a little more fun with the with this for animation, because I do want to make this into a full-on animation.
But I think that will wrap up here. We
went on a little longer than expected, and honestly, that's fine.
That's fine.
But, I do need to get food, because it's about med time. It's like medicine time, so that means it's lunchtime for me.
And I need to decompress.
Yeah. But,
neurodivergence is a bitch. But,
neurodivergence do be a thing.
Own old autism, that'll be a heartless bitch. Anyway, yeah. Thank you for having me, Angie.
It's always fun having you here, Kreuger. But yeah, thank you guys for joining up, and honestly, thank you for the really fun some of the really fun and deep questions. This is what I love to see, is questions that make us like, ooh, let's discuss the fun topics.
Yeah, because the best part of any creator is finding people who think similarly to them, who likes to ask for what if.
Exactly. And hopefully I can actually get this done relatively quickly. Hopefully. I don't know. Animation takes forever.
Animation takes a long time.
Yeah. And again, one person. But with that said, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you guys are looking forward to other stuff we do in the future, especially since, Pillars of Order has finally started those shorts, and hopefully we can get started on, hopefully we can make progress with the video soon. So yeah, look forward to that. I hope you guys are, because I am. And we will see you guys later. Love you all. Bye.
Bye.